The diplomatic hall on Station Nexus Prime buzzed with nervous energy. Representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, each group whispering among themselves in their native tongues. The air recyclers worked overtime to accommodate the various atmospheric requirements, creating a complex mix of gases that would have been toxic to most single-species gatherings. Ambassador Krelthak adjusted his translator device for the third time in 10 minutes. The massive Vorthak delegation leader's 6 eyes never left the central viewing screen, where incoming ship signatures appeared one by one. His species had seen many first contact scenarios, but none quite like this. "The human vessel approaches," announced Controller Zeeks through the station's communication system. Estimated arrival in 12 standard minutes. A collective shiver ran through the assembled delegates. Humans were still new to the galactic community, having made first contact only 18 months ago. Their reputation preceded them in the strangest ways. They were neither the strongest species nor the most advanced, but something about them unsettled even the most confident civilizations. Captain Veltar of the Crystalline Hegemony leaned toward her aide. "Remind me again why we agreed to this meeting?" "Because they requested protection for one of their own," her aide whispered back. "They claim their representative needs safe passage through Drakmor space." The mention of Drakmor space sent another wave of unease through the hall. The Drakmor sovereignty controlled the most dangerous sector of the galaxy, home to creatures so deadly that most species avoided the region entirely. Ancient warning beacons marked the boundaries in dozens of languages, all carrying the same message: "Enter at your own extinction." "Protection through Drakmor space?" scoffed General Thane of the military coalition. "Even our most advanced warships avoid that sector. What could the humans possibly want there?" Quote, before anyone could respond, the viewing screen lit up with an incoming transmission. The image showed the bridge of a human vessel, clean and efficient in its design. A woman in a blue uniform stepped forward, her expression calm but determined. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Harmony. We're requesting permission to dock." "Permission granted, Captain Chen," Controller Zix replied. "Bay 17 is prepared for your arrival." The screen went dark, leaving the delegates to exchange worried glances. The humans always seemed so composed, so certain of themselves. It was deeply unsettling to species that had learned caution through millions of years of evolution. 20 minutes later, the main doors to the diplomatic hall slid open. Captain Chen entered first, followed by 2 other human adults in matching uniforms. But it was the 4th member of their group that caused every delegate in the room to freeze in shock. A human child walked between the adults, no more than 8 years old by human standards. She had dark hair tied back in what humans called pigtails, and she wore a simple yellow dress with small flowers printed on it. In her arms, she clutched a worn stuffed animal that looked like some earth creature. The silence stretched for long seconds as hundreds of eyes stared at the small human. Finally, Ambassador Krelthak found his voice. "Captain Chen," he began, his translator struggling with his stunned tone. "This is unexpected. We were told you needed safe passage for a diplomatic representative." Captain Chen stepped forward, placing a protective hand on the child's shoulder. "This is Luna Chen, my daughter. She's our representative." The explosion of voices that followed was immediate and overwhelming. Delegates leaped to their feet, shouting in dozens of languages. The translator systems overloaded, creating a cacophony of overlapping protests and questions. "You cannot be serious." General Thane's voice rose above the others. "You want to send a child into Drakmor space? It's suicide," added Captain Veltar. "The creatures in that sector have destroyed entire fleets." Captain Chen raised her hand for silence, but the protests continued. It was Luna herself who ended the chaos. The 8-year-old girl stepped forward and spoke in a clear, calm voice that somehow carried over all the adult shouting. "Please stop yelling. You're scaring Mr. Buttons." She held up her stuffed animal, a small bear with button eyes and a red bow tie. The absurdity of the moment struck the assembled delegates speechless. Ambassador Krelthak slowly sat down, his 6 eyes fixed on the child. "Young human," he said carefully. "Do you understand where your people wish to take you?" Luna nodded seriously. "To see the big dragon." Mama says he's been alone for a very long time, and that makes him angry and sad. The dragon, repeated Controller Zix, his voice flat with disbelief. You're referring to the cosmic terror of Drakmor? That's not a very nice name, Luna said, frowning. Why do you call him that? The question hung in the air like a challenge. It was Captain Veltar who finally answered, her voice gentle despite her species' crystalline nature making kindness difficult to express. Because, little one, this creature has destroyed everything that has ever approached its domain. It's larger than most moons, with power that can tear apart reality itself. It's been the guardian of the Drakmor sector for over 10,000 years, and nothing has ever survived an encounter with it. Luna considered this information seriously, tilting her head to one side. Has anyone ever tried talking to him? The question was so simple, so innocent, that it left the experienced diplomats scrambling for an answer. General Thane was the first to respond. Communication has been attempted 17 times over the centuries. Each mission sent their best linguists, their most advanced translation technology, their most skilled diplomats. The creature destroyed them all without hesitation. But did anyone try to be nice to him? Luna pressed. Maybe he's just scared because everyone who visits brings big ships and weapons. Captain Chen knelt beside her daughter. Luna, tell them what you told me about the dragon. The little girl hugged Mr. Buttons tighter and looked around the room at all the alien faces watching her. I had a dream about him 3 nights ago. He was so big and beautiful, with scales that sparkled like stars. But he was crying, because no one wanted to be his friend. Everyone was always trying to fight him, or run away from him. She paused, looking directly at Ambassador Krelthak with startling intensity for such a young child. In my dream, he told me he was waiting for someone brave enough to say hello. Someone who wouldn't try to hurt him first. The hall erupted in chaos again. Species that had been enemies for centuries found themselves united in their horror at the human proposal. Ancient beings who had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations struggled to process what they were hearing. This is madness, shouted someone from the Insectoid Confederation. You would sacrifice a child to this monster? Captain Chen stood, her expression hardening. We're not sacrificing anyone. We're offering friendship to a being that has been isolated and possibly attacked for millennia. Luna volunteered for this mission. A child cannot volunteer for suicide. General Thane slammed his armored fist against his chair. This violates every principle of civilized behavior. Does it? Captain Chen asked quietly. Or does it violate your assumptions about how first contact should work? She gestured to her daughter, who was now sitting cross-legged on the floor, having a quiet conversation with her stuffed bear. Humans have a saying, out of the mouths of babes. Sometimes children see solutions that adults miss because they haven't learned to be afraid of the impossible. Ambassador Krelthak leaned forward, all 6 eyes focusing on the human captain. You truly believe this child can succeed where armed fleets have failed? I believe, Captain Chen said firmly, that she's the only one who hasn't already decided that the dragon is a monster. Maybe that's exactly what he's been waiting for. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Security protocols were discussed, emergency evacuation procedures were planned, and legal frameworks were debated. Through it all, Luna sat quietly with her stuffed bear, occasionally asking innocent questions that cut to the heart of complex diplomatic issues. As the session finally drew to a close, Controller Zix announced that a decision would need to be reached within 24 hours. The human request for safe passage would either be granted or denied, based on a majority vote of the assembled delegations. Captain Chen gathered her daughter and prepared to leave. As they reached the door, Luna turned back to look at the room full of worried aliens. Don't be scared, she said in her clear young voice. Sometimes the scariest things just need a friend. The doors closed behind the human delegation, leaving behind a room full of beings who had spent their entire lives learning the wisdom of fear, now questioning everything they thought they knew about courage. The vote came back unanimous, though not in the way anyone expected. Every single delegation had voted to allow the human mission to proceed, but with one massive condition. They would all accompany the small human vessel to witness what they were certain would be either the greatest diplomatic breakthrough in galactic history or the most tragic mistake ever made. A fleet of 47 ships now traveled through hyperspace toward the Drakmor sector. The vessels maintained careful formation around the small human transport, each one equipped with the most advanced recording equipment their species possessed. If Luna Chen was about to become the first being to communicate with the cosmic terror, the galaxy would have a complete record of how she did it. On the bridge of the Harmony, Luna sat in a specially modified chair that let her see over the control panels. She wore the same yellow dress as before, and Mr. Buttons sat securely in her lap. Captain Chen monitored the navigation displays while keeping one eye on her daughter. "We'll drop out of hyperspace in 10 minutes, announced Lieutenant Torres from the helm. "All escort vessels are maintaining formation." Luna pressed her nose against the view screen, trying to see past the swirling colors of hyperspace. "Will I be able to see him right away, Mama?" "Maybe, sweetheart. The dragon lives near a very bright star, so he should be easy to spot." On the bridge of the Vorthak flagship, Ambassador Krelthak watched his own displays with growing nervousness. His species had developed their 6 eyes to better spot predators, and every one of them was now focused on the sensor readings from the Drakmor sector. "Energy signatures are off the charts," reported his tactical officer. "Whatever that creature is, it's generating more power than our entire fleet combined. Maintain maximum safe distance," Krelthak ordered. "The moment that thing shows hostile intent, we retreat to jump distance." Similar conversations were happening on bridges across the fleet. General Thane had his weapons powered but not targeted, ready to defend the human child while hoping he wouldn't need to. Captain Veltar had her shields at full strength and her engines warmed for emergency departure. The countdown to hyperspace exit began on every ship simultaneously. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Transition complete. Reality snapped back into focus, and every being in the fleet found themselves staring at a sight that defied comprehension. The cosmic terror of Drakmor hung in space before them, and it was even more magnificent and terrifying than the ancient records had described. The creature was indeed larger than most moons, its body stretching nearly 50 kilometers from nose to tail. Its scales caught and reflected the light of the nearby star, creating patterns of gold and silver that seemed to shift and dance across its massive form. Great wings, each one large enough to wrap around a small planet, were folded against its sides. Its head alone was the size of a space station, with eyes like burning suns that now turned to examine the approaching fleet. "By the ancient crystals," whispered Captain Veltar. "It's beautiful." She wasn't alone in that assessment. Across the fleet, hardened military officers and experienced diplomats found themselves struck speechless by the creature's majesty. This was not the mindless monster of the old stories, but something ancient and intelligent and utterly magnificent. On the Harmony, Luna pressed both hands against the view screen, her eyes wide with wonder. "Oh, he's perfect. Look how the starlight makes his scales sparkle." Captain Chen felt her heart hammering in her chest as she watched her daughter's reaction. Luna showed no fear, only fascination and delight. "Remember what we talked about, Luna. Nice and slow, just like meeting a new friend at school." The dragon's massive head turned fully toward the human vessel. For a moment that stretched like eternity, child and cosmic being regarded each other across the void of space. Then Luna did something that sent shockwaves through the assembled fleet. She waved. It was the simple, enthusiastic wave of a child greeting a friend. She pressed her hand against the view screen and wiggled her fingers, her face bright with a smile that could have powered a small city. The dragon's response was immediate and unexpected. The great head tilted to one side, almost like a curious dog, and then one massive foreclaw lifted in what could only be described as a tentative wave in return. "Did it just—" General Thane's voice trailed off in disbelief. "Wave back," finished Ambassador Krelthak. The cosmic terror just waved at a human child. On the Harmony, Captain Chen activated the external communications array. "Luna, remember. Speak clearly so everyone can hear you." Luna nodded seriously and activated the comm system with the careful precision of a child who had practiced this moment many times. Her voice broadcast across all frequencies, reaching not only the dragon but every ship in the fleet. "Hello, big dragon. My name is Luna, and this is my friend Mr. Buttons. We came a really long way to meet you. Are you lonely out here all by yourself?" The response came not through any communication system, but directly into the minds of every being within a light year of the dragon's position. The voice was ancient beyond measure, deep as the space between stars, but filled with a loneliness so profound that it brought tears to the eyes of creatures who hadn't cried in millennia. "Little star child, you are not afraid?" Luna giggled, a sound so purely joyful that it seemed to make the very fabric of space itself brighter. "Why would I be afraid? You're the most beautiful dragon I've ever seen. Though, to be fair, you're also the only dragon I've ever seen. But I bet even if I saw 100 dragons, you'd still be the most beautiful." The dragon's mental voice carried what could only be described as amazement. "Thousands of your years have passed since any being spoke to me without fear or hatred. They come with weapons and shields, and demands that I move from this place. Why do you come with only kindness? Because Mama taught me that when someone is mean, it's usually because they're sad, or scared, or hurt. And I had a dream about you. And in my dream, you were so sad because everyone was afraid of you. I thought maybe if someone wasn't afraid, you might not have to be sad anymore." The silence that followed was profound. Across the fleet, hardened warriors and experienced diplomats found themselves wiping away tears as they listened to the conversation between the child and the cosmic being. Finally, the dragon spoke again, and this time, his mental voice carried something that hadn't been there before. "Hope, little star child, would you like to come closer? I promise on my ancient oath that no harm will come to you or your friends." Luna bounced in her chair with excitement. "Yes. Can we, Mama? Can we go visit the dragon?" Captain Chen looked at her instruments, then at her daughter's eager face. Every instinct screamed danger. But Luna's joy was infectious. "Lieutenant Torres, take us in, nice and slow." The Harmony began its approach while the rest of the fleet maintained their safe distance. As they drew closer, details of the dragon became visible that defied all scientific understanding. His scales weren't just reflective, they contained actual starlight, as if the creature's hide was woven from the fabric of space itself. His eyes held the depth of eternity, ancient wisdom that had watched the birth and death of civilizations. When they were close enough to make out individual scales, the dragon's voice filled their minds again. "I have not seen such courage in, oh, little star child, in so very long. Your people, these humans, they must be mighty indeed to produce such a brave heart." Luna pressed herself against the view screen, trying to get as close as possible to the magnificent creature. "We're not really mighty at all. Humans are pretty new to space, and we're not the strongest or the smartest, but Mama says our best strength is that we try to be kind, even when it's scary. Especially when it's scary," Captain Chen added softly. The dragon's massive eye, larger than their entire ship, moved to focus on Captain Chen. "You are the mother of this brave spark?" "I am, and I've never been more proud or more terrified in my life." A sound rumbled from the dragon that took several seconds to identify. It was laughter, deep and rich and warm, the first laughter heard in the Drakmor sector in thousands of years. "Little star child," the dragon said to Luna, "I have a confession to make. In all my long years, through all the lonely centuries, I have dreamed of having a friend, someone who would see past the fear and the legends to find the being beneath. Would you be my friend?" Luna's response was immediate and wholehearted. "Of course! I'd love to be your friend. Friends are the best thing ever." She paused, then looked thoughtful. "What should I call you? Everyone else calls you the Cosmic Terror, but that's not very friendly." "I had forgotten," the dragon admitted, wonder filling his ancient voice. "It has been so long since anyone asked for my name. I am Stellar Thok, the last keeper of the deep stars." "That's a beautiful name. Can I call you Stellar? It's easier for me to remember." "You may call me whatever brings you joy, little star child." Luna grinned and hugged Mr. Buttons. "This is the best day ever. I made a new friend, and he's a dragon. And he has the most beautiful scales in the whole universe." Across the fleet, the assembled representatives of 47 species watched in stunned silence as the most feared creature in known space was befriended by an 8-year-old human girl with a stuffed bear and an unshakable belief in the stating Satan space power of kindness. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the moment that changed everything. Luna Chen, 8 years old, and completely unaware that she was rewriting the fundamental assumptions of interspecies diplomacy, asked if she could give her new friend a hug. A hug? Stellarthak's mental voice carried millennia of confusion. I do not understand this concept, little star child. Luna giggled and demonstrated by hugging Mr. Buttons tightly. See? You put your arms around someone you care about and squeeze them gently. It makes both people feel better. Mama gives me hugs when I'm sad, and I give her hugs when she's tired from work. But young friend, Stellarthak said gently, I am somewhat larger than your mother. I fear a hug from me might accidentally destroy your entire ship. Luna's face scrunched up in concentration as she considered this problem. Then her expression brightened with the kind of solution only a child's mind could produce. What if I hugged you instead? I'm really small, but I give the best hugs ever. Just ask Mama. Captain Chen's heart nearly stopped. Luna, sweetheart, remember what we talked about staying inside the ship? But Mama, Stellar is my friend now, and friends give hugs when they meet. It's just good manners. Luna turned to look at her mother with that particular expression children use when they're absolutely certain they're right about something. Besides, he promised no harm would come to us, and friends don't break promises. Before Captain Chen could respond, Stellarthak's voice filled their minds again, and this time it carried an emotion that brought tears to every being listening. Desperate hope. Little star child, in all my endless years, no creature has ever voluntarily touched me except to do battle. If you truly wish to offer such kindness, I would be honored beyond measure. But your mother is correct to be cautious. I am ancient and powerful, and even my gentlest touch might harm you. Luna stood up in her chair, holding Mr. Buttons in one arm and raising the other in a gesture of absolute confidence. Then we'll have to be extra careful, won't we? But I'm not scared. Stellar, friends aren't scared of each other. The debate that followed involved three-way communication between Luna, her mother, and a cosmic dragon older than most civilizations. Safety protocols were discussed, emergency procedures were planned, and contingencies were prepared for situations that no one had ever imagined facing. Finally, a solution was reached that satisfied everyone involved. Luna would wear a specially modified environmental suit that would allow her to survive in space for a limited time. The dragon would extend one of his smaller claws, still roughly the size of Luna herself, and she would touch it with her gloved hand. It was, as Captain Chen remarked, probably the most carefully planned hug in galactic history. As the preparations were made, word spread throughout the fleet of what was about to happen. On 47 different ships, beings who had spent their lives learning the wisdom of caution watched in fascination as the humans prepared to do something impossible. They're actually going to do it, General Thane reported to his command staff. The child is going to physically make contact with the cosmic terror. Her name is Luna, his communications officer corrected quietly. And his name is Stellarthak. Maybe it's time we stopped thinking of them as a child and a terror, and started thinking of them as friends meeting for the first time. On the bridge of the Harmony, Luna checked her environmental suit one more time. The helmet was decorated with small stars that Captain Chen had painted on to make it less frightening. Mr. Buttons had his own tiny suit, a thoughtful addition from the engineering team that made Luna giggle with delight. Remember, Captain Chen said, kneeling beside her daughter, just a quick touch, then back inside. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you tell me immediately. I will, Mama, but everything's going to be fine. Stellar is my friend. The airlock doors opened, and Luna stepped out into space for the first time in her young life. The environmental suit was bulky, but she moved with the careful precision of a child who understood the importance of the moment. Stellarthak had positioned himself with infinite care. One massive claw extended toward the human ship. The claw itself was beautiful beyond description, appearing to be carved from crystallized starlight and time itself. Ancient runes covered its surface, symbols of power and protection that glowed with soft inner light. "I am ready, little star child," Stellarthak's voice whispered through Luna's suit communicator. "Thank you for this gift of trust." Luna walked carefully across the space between ship and dragon, her magnetic boots keeping her secure on the hull. When she reached the point where ship and claw were closest, she extended her small, gloved hand and gently placed it against the massive surface. The moment of contact sent shockwaves through space itself. Not destructive shockwaves, but waves of pure emotion and connection that every being within a light year could feel. It was joy and wonder and the end of millennia of loneliness all rolled into a single, perfect moment. Stellarthak's mental voice, when it came, was filled with awe. "Oh, little star child. You feel like starlight and hope and everything good in the universe. How can such a small being contain so much brightness?" Luna giggled, the sound somehow carrying perfectly through the vacuum of space to reach every listening ear. "That's what hugs are for, Stellar. They share the good feelings around so everyone has some." She patted the dragon's claw gently with her other hand. "See? Now you have some of my happiness, and I have some of your wisdom. That's how friendship works." What happened next would be debated by scientists and philosophers for centuries to come. The dragon's scales began to glow brighter, and patterns of light started to flow across his massive form. But more than that, something fundamental changed in the space around him. The oppressive sense of danger that had surrounded the Drakmor sector for millennia simply disappeared. "Stellar," Luna said thoughtfully. "You don't seem scary at all. You seem sad and lonely. Were you always scary to other people because you were protecting something?" The dragon's mental voice carried surprise and something like relief. "You see clearly, young friend. I am the last keeper, guardian of the deep stars. Long ago, my people charged me with protecting the pathways between dimensions, the places where reality grows thin. I have been alone here so long, driving away all who approach, because I feared what might happen if the barriers were breached. But why didn't you just tell people that? I bet lots of them would have helped you guard the important places." The simplicity of the question left the cosmic dragon speechless for long moments. Finally, he admitted, "Because, little star child, in all my eons of existence, it never occurred to me that anyone would want to help rather than exploit such power. You have shown me something I had forgotten. That there is still kindness in the universe." Luna carefully removed one glove and pressed her bare hand against the dragon's claw. The contact should have been impossible, human flesh touching cosmic force, but somehow it worked perfectly. Where her skin met his scales, tiny flowers began to bloom. Earth flowers that shouldn't have been able to exist in the vacuum of space, but did anyway, because this was a moment of pure magic. "Stellar," Luna said solemnly. "Would you like to not be alone anymore? I bet Mama and I could visit you sometimes. And maybe some of the other nice aliens would want to visit too, now that they know you're not really scary." Stellarthak's response came not in words but in a wave of emotion so powerful that every being in the fleet felt it. Gratitude and joy and relief so profound that it made the stars themselves seem brighter. "Little star child," he said finally, "you have given me the greatest gift in the universe. You have given me hope that my long watch need not be a lonely one. Yes, I would like very much for you to visit again, and perhaps it is time I learned to make friends instead of enemies." The dragon's great head turned toward the assembled fleet, and when he spoke, his mental voice reached every ship simultaneously. "People of the many worlds, I owe you an apology. For thousands of years, I have been the terror in your nightmares. The danger that made you fear this sector of space. But this brave child has shown me that I can be something else. A protector who works with you rather than against you. A guardian who shares his burden rather than carrying it alone." He paused, and when he continued, his voice carried a humility that stunned the listening delegates. "Would any of you be willing to help an old dragon learn how to make friends?" The response was immediate and overwhelming. 47 different species, beings who had approached this sector in fear, now volunteered eagerly to establish the first diplomatic contact with the former cosmic terror of Drakmor. Luna clapped her hands together with delight, the movement causing the impossible flowers to drift around them like living stars. See? Stellar, I told you everyone would want to be your friend once they got to know you. That's how friendship works. It starts with one person being brave enough to say hello. As Luna made her way back to the ship, leaving a trail of starlight flowers in her wake, Stellarthak's voice followed her with a promise that would echo through galactic history. Little star child, Luna Chen of Earth, you have changed everything. You have turned a monster into a friend, a terror into a guardian, and loneliness into hope. When the stories of this day are told, they will speak of the human child who kissed the universe's deadliest dragon and taught him how to love again. Luna paused at the airlock and turned back to wave at her new friend. That's silly, Stellar. I didn't kiss you, I hugged you. Though if you want a kiss too, I'll give you one next time I visit. Mama says kisses are even better than hugs for making people feel loved. The laughter that followed, deep dragon laughter, mixed with the giggles of a delighted child, rang out across the Drakmor sector and beyond, carrying the news to the far corners of the galaxy. The age of fear was over, and the age of friendship had begun, and at the center of it all was Luna Chen, 8 years old, holding a stuffed bear named Mr. Buttons, who had just proved that sometimes the smallest beings can accomplish the greatest things simply by choosing kindness over fear.